This example shows how to save a value, in this case a password value, for the Android app as a settings, but in this case we don't have settings settings interface. I only use the settings, the preferences as container, a data container. So first I show the handling of this variable. When we use here this password, then I give here a variable, let's say test, and now I may save this this entry into the settings, and then I read back the settings. Here it is. There's a small toast message, and this is done without the settings activity. That's totally different. And here's the code which was made therefore. First, when we open the main activity, we have to set there some variables like the context and the edit field and the shared preferences. These are called settings in this case. Then on the create we need to allocate the to get the edit text password. That's the entry field. This is the entry field, and the settings are that's like a container. When we say okay, this is a global settings container, then I say okay, the context is the main activity in this case, and I say context get shared preferences of settings. So settings is when I start with my app. This is not given, it's an empty container, and when I write something to this empty data container, then this settings container will be created. And now we go to the save. As soon as I said here in this case, take this variable by the save from this entry field, here setting. Then I said from my settings, here is the settings of settings, or of the container, of the data container. This is the data container. It's like a small table. Or when we save this stuff, then I go to the and I push the button. Then first I look up the string value which is in the text field, and then we say okay, for saving we need shared preferences editor. So the shared preferences is here, settings context get shared preference of this settings container. This is the shared preference, and we say okay, of these shared preferences of this data table, give me an editor which works on this data container. And then we say okay, first clear the editor, and then put string password in there. And if the settings container was not given before, then it will write this value in there. And for reading back the value, we have to say okay, the same settings which we initialized here, we say okay, get string of this data table. So when I show this on a small word table, let's say this is as soon as I say settings, then then this is an internal table, and the Android system will write here, if when it loads this shared preferences, let's say like this, when it loads this shared preferences, then it loads this table, and then it with the shared preference editor is the editor of to write something in there, and then when we say password, then it will set up here in the key. This is the key and this is the value. Then it will write something in there, let's say the actual test value. And when we say get string, then we say okay, get string of this data table, and read back the value there. So the system also has a lot of tables. I think if it's the same as in it's made in the Windows Phone, then it has I don't know the amount, maybe several thousand tables, possible internal tables. When we say okay, this is my let's say time values, for example, or something like this, or my group values, group settings, then I set here something like the user, and the user is Raymond, for example. Yeah. So whenever we get a shared preference, and when we edit something there, then an internal table will be written. And the important stuff on there is when I close now the app, and also close the emulator, I'm shut down my system, and now when I start it again, then the value should be still there. Here it is. Now when I say read, then it comes the word test, which is now in our container, here in our container test. So this is important for saving permanent values or persistent values. I hope I could give you a small idea of reading and saving settings. And if you liked it, then give me a subscription.